that you have to look a particular certain way to be seen and to be deemed as desirable. Love Island does not do favours for black women. As of last year, there have been over 300 contestants on UK Love Island, and not a single man has ever said they're queer. Statistically, that is not that just doesn't work. Hello, everybody. How's it going? Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. Hope you're well. Hope you're safe, hydrated, looking after yourself, and all of that. Hope you're enjoying the sun as well. Hope you're enjoying the sun. And if you're not enjoying the sun, I feel for you, to be honest. So, for those of you who know me, how are you? What's going on? Good to see you. Hope you missed me because I missed you. And for those of you who don't, that's all right. What are you saying? Welcome. My name is Jord. This is the Winning Side podcast. And today I want to talk about Love Island. All things Love Island. So I made a very proactive choice to not watch Love Island this year. I feel like one thing I find quite comical about the Love Island and the reception is the fact that everyone complains about how it's structured and how it's laid out every single year, but everyone continues to watch it. I think it's a bit hypocritical. And I said to myself, I was like, do you know what? All I ever do is complain about this show and complain how I don't agree with the morals, the values, the ethics. So I thought, if I feel so strongly about it, let me stop watching the show. And so I have. And I think okay, let me start this on a positive. I think I liked it initially because it was quite easy watching. I was here for the drama, and it was just quite. I think television also provides a nice form of escapism. You know, I think that's the main gist. I think that's the main way to catch engagement. You know, it helps us switch off for a little bit. And I mean, I'm guilty. So obviously, Love Island is currently on season 12. I probably started watching it about season 4, if that's right. So that would have been when Danny Dyer won with Jack. Okay, is it Finch? What was his name? Jack Summer. Yeah, it is Jack Fincham. Yeah. So, and at that point, it was still. I mean, it still was what it is now, but I don't know. It just wasn't very as in your face as such, you know. So I'm gonna dissect. I'm gonna talk about why I personally have stopped watching it, my reasons why, and just my feelings towards it. Obviously, this is subjective. This is my own opinion. These are my own thoughts. These aren't facts. These aren't things. Well, actually, that's not true. Some of them are facts. They aren't all facts. They aren't things sourced from BBC. It's purely opinion and subjective. And yeah, if you don't like it, keep it moving respectfully. But if you're interested, let's keep talking. Let's see what I got to say. Why I stopped watching Love Island. I mean, I feel like naturally, as a queer person, I was always a bit reluctant. And it kind of feels like, as queer people, because vast majority of dating shows are dominated by heterosexual couples, we don't really have an alternative, you know? And it's very much like you have this or you have nothing. Granted, we do have some queer shows. I Kissed a Boy, I Kissed a Girl, and there are dating shows where there's a couple of queer contestants, if you will, but it doesn't equate to the extreme significant amount that we get for straight couples. And obviously I get it because more people on paper are straight, so I do understand it. However, it's just for me, I just think I don't know, and it so heavily shoves heteronormativity in your face. And when I say that, I don't even mean just the dynamic of a man dating a woman. It's not even just that. It's also reinforcing certain cultures which are just I personally just don't think are appropriate. Toxic masculinity is a really heavy display in Love Island, you know, and I think also it's And when I say that, I mean like the men are always like extremely laddie and the girls are extremely girly, which is obviously completely fair. But I think it kind of like creates this image and depiction that if you don't fit in that box, you are suited or desirable for love as a heterosexual person. Do you know what I mean? It's very much like you have to look a certain way and you have to act a certain way, and that is the only way in which you are going to thrive in the TV show and b the heterosexual world. And I just feel like because they go on about diversity so much, but it really isn't. Like, even like the people who are like supposedly bigger aren't bigger. I remember one year, yeah, there was a, let me not pit, no shade to her because she's actually gorgeous. There was a girl who was on it who was slightly bigger. And when I say slightly bigger, it wasn't maybe like a size up. And I remember people being like, "Oh my god, so amazing! There's a plus size girl." I was like, she's literally what a girl size is. I would have said she was literally like a size 10, a size 12 maybe at a push. And I just think Love Island has this real good way of creating these really unrealistic beauty standards. It kind of encourages men and women that you have to look a particular certain way to be seen and to be deemed as desirable. You have to be thin. As a woman, you have to supposedly be thin to be desired. As a man, you have to have muscles to be top notch. You have to have like pretty teeth, a beat face. You have to have all of these things in check. And if you don't, you aren't eligible. And I think the message is so. It's just unfair. It's just unfair. It's unfair, and it also like. I don't know. It just teaches you all these really unfair. Not unfair again. Just teaches you these really outdated versions of beauty, which are meant to be prominent, but it's really not the case. But yeah, I personally think I would actually be really keen and intrigued and interested to actually watch Love Island with people that didn't look like the supposed like standard beauty, that didn't look like the supposedly idolized version of beauty. I'd love to see plus size people because I think it also kind of like communicates this message: if you don't look like that, you can't find love. And that's what I hate the most. That is what I hate the most. The idea that if you do not look a certain way, you cannot find love, kind of just feeds into like the significance of like Eurocentric features and like, well, I mean, whiteness, to be honest, white supremacy, Okay, so obviously, like, I don't know if this is my biggest thing, but this is something that is obviously really apparent and just doesn't seem to be changing. I haven't watched this year's season, so this year's season may have switched up. I do not know. However, like, Love Island, for the most part, does not do favours for black women. Love Island, for the most part, does not do favours for black women. I'm sorry, but with Love, how difficult is it? How difficult is it for the producers to find men of all races that like black women? I don't understand how it can be so far stretched, and how like vast majority of the time these black women are the last choice. And I think obviously like I am a creation of an interracial relationship, so like I subscribe, but like I think it's bad enough that when black women aren't rated by people outside of their race, but I think it's an even bigger kick in the face when the black men on the show are going for non-black women, and I just think like. And I don't know if like if the people behind the scenes are the ones to blame, or if it's just the content. Because I feel like realistically, you're not gonna say specifically that your type isn't black. Like you just wouldn't, because you wouldn't be allowed on the show. You just wouldn't be allowed on the show. But I can't help but feel like Love Island does not do black women any favors. Does not do black women. There are so many rare cases of where black women have thrived on the show and after the show. There's very few people in the scene who are like doing crazily well after Love Island. Like, obviously, like, let me get it twisted. Like, so many people do go into that, like, in that influencer career, that influencer industry, content creator industry, you know. But there's different levels. There's different levels, and there's really unfair levels. Like, for example, I believe that there are quite a lot of white female influencers who originated from Love Island, who do not bring much to the table, but I think their whiteness has allowed them to thrive more than some of the black women. Like, I remember, do you know who I used to really like? Yeah, there was a girl. She wasn't on it for very long. I can't think of what season she was on. Probably about season 7 or season 8. Her name was Zara, and she had so much character, so much personality, and I thought she would have been a shoo-in. I thought she was great, and people used to always say, "Oh, she'd be great for All Stars if she had been there for a bit longer." And I just think, like, you have to. It's almost like you have to work twice as hard. And I'm not going to include the men, because the black men have it better than the black women. Granted, like, the influencer space is more centered and catering towards women, as it should be, because men dominate most things. But, like, I'm not going to talk about the black men. But it's almost like you have to work twice as hard to be half as seen as a white woman, as a black woman in this space, you know? And that's why I really admire Indiyah. I think Indiyah probably has the biggest success story of a black woman from Love Island. She's in a very loving relationship from Love Island. Her career is incredible and extremely impressive. And the fact that because I think she came third. I think she was third place. And the fact that she did that and then was able to continue to climb up the ladder. Obviously, she does After Sun. She does the podcast. There's a lot of things in her bag. But I feel like it's one of those ones where, like, because as a black content creator, we have a lot of, like, separate spaces. And I do, obviously, don't get it twisted, there's a lot of other black girls from Love Island that I see in those spaces doing well. Like Kaz, she's always outside. I see Samira doing stuff as well. Same as, who else is there? Priscilla's doing really well, actually. Priscilla too. But, like, I don't know, I just feel like I just feel like Indiyah has just, like, reached a complete different level, you know, and I'm so here for it. But I think as black people, because it's such a rarity, we really, really hold on to it. Do you know what I mean? But it's almost like, what do we need to do to bridge the gap to allow all black women to have equal opportunities after? Because even though this show is a love show, it's about finding love and finding connection, supposedly. But, like, in the back of your head, you have to consider the career opportunities. You know, obviously, like, it's amazing to see any person, black or white. It's amazing to see how well some people can go after and the levels of success they can reach. Notable mentions: Molly May, Chloe Burrows, Maura Higgins, Olivia Atwood, Olivia Buckland, Chris Hughes. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's, like, it's very impressive how people are able to reach these levels of success. Zara, who does the documentary, she's a great example as well, you know? But I want to push further for black women. I want black women to be given the same allowances, the same opportunities, and the same chances to thrive. That's all I want. That's all I think we need. But then, obviously, history was made. Last summer, Mimii was the first black woman to win Love Island, right? And like I said, I think a lot of the time it's also like a representation thing. Like, I think of the message that provides for black women at home. Because, to be honest, I'm an R, because part of me thinks, do black women really help themselves by going on Love Island? Like, do they, like, is it self-sabotage? But then I think, if that was the case, and if that was the reason for a bit of reluctancy, we would never, as black people, we would never do anything. Do you know what I mean? Like, because I used to always think, do these girls not watch this show and understand how difficult it is for them? Do they not appreciate how, like, they just aren't the first choice? But then I think to myself, someone has to pave the way. Someone has to start the start the herd, has to start the lead, you know? And I think 10 years in the making, Mimii winning Love Island goes down in history a whole decade for a black woman to win. Granted, yes, we do have Amber Gill, but like, you know, and as a mixed race person, as a light skinned person, it's not the same. It's not the same, you know. And I just find it so interesting how like the natural. I don't know if they say this now, but it used to always be like, oh, because people would be, and I get you have a type, but I just think if you're in Love Island, surely you want to be a bit more open minded. And it's when these guys will so outwardly say, oh, my type is like blonde, blue eyes, baby boy. Just say you want a white girl. Just say you want a white girl. Why are we sugarcoating it? But then saying that, to be fair, yeah, I used to remember when guys would say to me their type was like tall, dark and handsome. And I'd be like, oh, say no more. But then they'd mean like a white boy with like dark hair. I'd be like, oh, what a tease. Just say white boy. Save me the hassle. But no, it's interesting because I think as a black person, when you've dated interracially, you can pick up on this better than most people or some people, because I've spoken to people about this, non-black people who are like, oh, I don't get it. And there are certain things that you would watch and you would see it and you'd be like, oh, rah. Like, I remember, like, I love, like, Samira. I remember there was a moment where she was getting really upset because she was like, nobody likes me. Like, I don't know what it is. Nobody likes me. And I'm thinking, it's because of baby girl. And Samira's this is the worst thing about it, right? These black women, right, are exceptionally beautiful because I feel like they have to be. I feel like they have to be. These black women that come on Love Island are honestly stunning. They are beautiful. They are like top tier, top notch. And I think to myself, if these black women who are like honestly, who look like low-key goddesses are still not getting these men, who else stands a chance? Who else stands a chance, really? But no, there are moments in the show where you watch it and you think, okay, I can't help but think, what are you trying to say? Is that meant to be sugar-coated? Like, obviously, like Uma is a black woman. And I can remember, so obviously she's with Will and her and Will are lovely. I remember there was some chaos at the movie night. And then Will was basically saying how, like, she's not his usual type. She got very emotional, understandably, and it's just another part of PTSD. It's just another throwback. It's like, okay, what you're saying is black women aren't your type. I'm like, come on, you need to reel it in a little bit. I feel like also one of the issues is these people aren't very sensitive when it comes to having this approach, and I kind of think to myself, do the producers not give these contestants like an ethics check to be like, look, if so-and-so isn't your type, go about it in an appropriate way, you know? But I feel like obviously but at the same time saying that, I think when you are that person on the receiving end, you just know, you know? Like there are times where I've like liked people, yeah, and they'll be like, oh, not my type. And I'm thinking, it's just, like, let's be honest, it's because I'm black. It's because I'm black, you know? And obviously like most people wouldn't say that. But, like, I think when you know, you know. My other issue with Love Island is the fact that I think Love Island is quite anti-queer. And obviously, like, I understand this show is for straight couples and straight people, supposedly, to meet each other and have connections and find love. I get that. However, I do believe it has undertones of being anti-queer. There are multiple women, and noted, only women, never men. There are multiple women who have come off that show and have claimed they are bisexual or are queer in some capacity, right? But have been told that they weren't allowed to talk about it, or any conversations they had about it weren't aired. Now, the way that I see it is, I think with that amount of people coming into an island back and forth all summer, surely even a small portion of them have to be queer, right? Like statistically. If you look at statistics, queer people are 1 in 4. And that's not necessarily like gay or lesbian. That could also be bisexual, pansexual, asexual, you know what I mean? So I just find it, because I think also obviously the importance of like bisexual people being in heterosexual relationships is really necessary. Do you know what I mean? And I think to myself, it's really interesting how those conversations were had. but weren't aired. So special mentions being Sharon Gafka from season 7 is a bisexual woman. Megan Barton Hansen from season 4 is a bisexual woman. And I just think it kind of adds a bit more to it. And it's just very much like, is that ITV's or Love Island's way of trying to like project anti-queerness to like avoid it, you know? Like, will we ever get to a point where ITV will have like a significant amount of queer couples trying to find a romantic interest on mainstream television? I hope so. I don't know, but I really, really hope so. I really hope so. You know, so that's quite interesting. Amber Gill, who actually won season 5 of Love Island, I believe she's gay. But then I don't know if that's really the same, in all fairness to her, because I don't think she like fully like realised at the time. She just thought she'd rate the guys. But so I don't know if that's applicable to her, to be fair. But I think also like, and it being anti-queer kind of like embraces this culture about the prominence of being heterosexual, you know? I'm not being funny, right? So, as of last year, there have been over 300 contestants on UK Love Island, and not a single man has ever said they're queer. Statistically, that just doesn't work. There is no way that there is not a single man out of 300 that likes men a little bit, just like a little bit. And it makes me think to myself, does Love Island create this culture, this imagery where you have to be masculine, where you have to be straight, where even after you've left the show you still don't feel comfortable? Because there's no way in hell that all 150 men that have gone on that show are 100% straight. No way. And is it very much like, do the women feel more comfortable because men somewhat like it, and like the space is more accepting for queer women who were perceived as straight women? You know, it doesn't make sense. Logistically, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't add up. And I just think to myself, because heteronormativity is so heavily reinforced in that show, men probably aren't placed in a position where they feel comfortable to talk about their sexual orientation. And I think another issue is, right, Love Island and like the reception to Love Island does not embrace flamboyant men. Flamboyant men, right, and if men who are a bit more feminine, it's automatically presumed they're always gay. That's always like the go-to. Oh, they must be gay. They must like men. They must be gay. Yeah. Farmer Will, who's with Jessie now from season, I don't know. He is quite in touch with his feminine side. I think it's fun. Like, maybe as a queer man I see it differently, but I would rather have a man with a bit of femme, personally. Curtis Pritchard's another example. He's also been scrutinized for being supposedly feminine, and I just think, like, why is it such an issue? Is it not refreshing and nice and different to see a man who doesn't like conform to like being masculine or being macho all the time? I think it's boring. Like, it's unflavorful. I think the same was for Chris Hughes, you know. And I just think, like, we can only have so many like boxers or footballers or like wannabe athletes that like are so rigid and so like robotic, you know. Let's mix it up a little bit. Come on, guys. I think one of my biggest critiques with Love Island is the fact that just everyone just wants to be an influencer. Like, everyone just wants to be an influencer. Bring back builders, bring back teachers, bring back bricklayers. You know, like I really do appreciate and understand how Love Island has the ability to give these people a whole career. And you know what? I'm here for it. I'm actually here for it. But at the same time, it just makes it so boring because you can really tell. And it's just very much like, I feel sorry for people that go on genuinely trying to find love, but I do enjoy and appreciate the cases where people have gone on to find love and they have managed to get a career out of it. You know, that's just like a bonus. Amy Hart is a great example. You could tell when she was on there, she really wanted to like find love, and hence why she left after Curtis. But she has an amazing career now, and I love that for her. You know, that's quite nice. Whereas there are people like Molly May, who else? Molly May. I can't think of anyone else, but there are people like Molly May who quite clearly went on to build their brand, and I respect it. And I respect it more when people are honest about it, because there are so many people that are like, oh, I just went on for a bit of fun, for like a love, for like a bit of love in the summer. I'm like, baby boy, come on, baby girl, that's who you kidding? But yeah, I just think, who are you kidding? I don't know. But then Molly May's an interesting one, because she did actually go on and she has said to boost her career, and she probably has one of the only few successful love stories that came out of Love Island. I believe that, like, according to my research, 85 pairs left as couples from Love Island, and I think 11 or 12 are together, which is pretty crazy. And if you look back, the couples that are more together than not are from earlier seasons, which kind of shows the shift. It kind of suggests the shift that as time and as seasons have gone on, the intentions and the reasoning are less genuine, you know? But yeah, like, just everyone wants to be an influencer, and it's just like, get your bag, I guess, but it's just boring. Like, it's just boring. And I had to really say to myself, I was like, can I really put myself through this again? Can I really put myself through this again? Because after watching, I think the last one I watched was All Stars. And do you know what? I actually really enjoy the concept of All Stars. Granted, they don't actually manage to get actual stars, but like, I think the concept is and could be quite clever. But I had to really sit down myself and say to myself, I was like, this literally goes against so many things that you advocate for. But like, I appreciate what the show can do to change your life, you know, and I appreciate what the power that it has. But I just feel like, with that, on top of the mistreatment of people of color and like the way they try to hide queerness, it just isn't for me, you know. But like, yeah, I enjoy and I appreciate the initial intention and concept that Love Island have. I just feel like that has been lost over time, you know? However, yeah, I don't know, I can't see myself watching the show again. I'm so past it. However, though, I'm always rooting for my POCs. I'm always rooting for people who have genuine love stories, you know, the ones that like make you feel a bit giddy, like teehee. But yeah, that's where I'm at. But guys, short and sweet. Thanks for watching. Hope you have a great morning, afternoon, evening, or anything in between. My name is Jord. This is the Winning Side Podcast, and I will see you very soon.